presenting Eastern philosophical and spiritual values for popular American consumption belongs not to Emerson and Thoreau, but to a group of intellectual seekers known as the later Transcendentalists. Though stimulated by Emerson to look east, each one of these individuals was to move out along mystical paths of their own. For example, James Freeman Clarke would become perhaps the most influential. His book, 10 Great Religions, stands out as the most informative and popular, text presentations of Eastern values to appear in the 19th century American landscape. An outstanding leader of Boston Unitarianism for almost 50 years, Clarke was a furious worker for women's rights and the right to vote, suffrages, as well as the abolition of slavery. Now, unlike Emerson, Clarke does not feel the need to abandon the Unitarian ministry, and he seeks to reconcile Transcendentalism and Christian Unitarianism. Not an easy thing to do way back then. Now, Clarke is a brilliant man, but he's not a trained scholar. Nevertheless, he becomes a leading authority and slowly expands his knowledge, becoming a lecturer at Harvard, a lecturer on non-Christian religions. Now, circa 1883, Clarke further elaborates his ideas in a separate and second volume, 10 Great Religions, Part 2. The chapters on Eastern religions, well, it's nothing less than a revelation. And Part 2 opens up a largely unknown world of spiritual belief, basically to the Western world. He respects other faiths or spiritual paths, but Clarke views Christianity as superior, believing that Christianity held a sacred role, a role as the harmonizer of the 10 great religions of the world. Now, despite his own personal views, Clarke has a respectful, sympathetic attitude towards the religions of the East. Unlike previous writers on the subject, on the topic, whom had always shown the darker side or worst aspects of the Eastern faiths. To these earlier writers, Judaism and Christianity were revealed by God, and all other faiths were invented by men. Judeo-Christian theology holds the only truth. All other religions are false and contain no truth at all. Well, Clarke insists that that is complete and utter nonsense. Bah humbug, says Clarke, who writes that there is much truth to be found in the non-Christian religions, and some areas in which the East can teach the West a lesson or two. For example, Clarke contrasts Buddhist toleration with the Christian Inquisition, and he accords Eastern thought and spirituality a respect that sadly had been largely missing in earlier scholarly accounts. Clarke models his approach on that of a scientist and invents a new type of religious study, comparative theology. And he divides up the religions of the world into categories, as a botanist might classify plants. These are the two categories in Clarke's viewpoint here. The ethnic faiths, which were restricted to a distinctive people and geography and were non-missionary. They had no attempts to breed converts and are located only in a certain geographical area. He calls these the ethnic faiths. Well, he also has a second category, the Catholic faiths. These religions are engaged in active missionary work, and they have lots of converts. The Catholic faiths transcend racial and geographical limitations. He even creates his own rating system and gives critical analysis on the 10 great religions of the world. For example, Hinduism. Clarke considers Hinduism idealistic and pantheistic, which of course it is, and he considers it very much on the side of the spirit, but defective on the side of the material world. He also felt that Hinduism was virtually overflowing as regarding the infinite, but empty of the finite. He also felt that it was recognized eternity, but not time itself. Interesting view there by Clarke. Now, to Clarke, Buddhism was, rationalistic and humanistic, and held the exact opposite truths and opposite defects as Hinduism. To Clarke, Buddhism recognized humanity but not God, and didn't recognize the soul at all. Clarke seems to be especially appreciative of Buddhism and views the Buddha as a type of Asian Martin Luther who rebels against early Hinduism's excessive ritualism, hierarchy, and classicism. The two-volume text, Great Religions, the 10 Great Religions, was certainly a vast improvement over earlier studies. But Clarke takes some selective approaches here when he concludes that Christianity is the supreme religion and contrasts the merits of the Eastern religions with the still greater merits of Unitarian Christianity. To Clarke, Unitarianism contains all the positive and none of the negative elements of the Eastern religions. Clarke's type of Christianity is nothing less than the fulfillment or pleroma of all the other world's religions. That's how Clarke views Christianity. Now, let's move on to Samuel